Buddy? Am I on? Good. Pastor Jerry is at his daughter's graduation, so he sends his love today. We know how much we love going to graduations. And he's out there, I think in San Francisco, is that right? I think in Palo Alto. But he sends his love, and he's going to visit a friend who's very ill. Thank you for all the music this morning. It's been beautiful. I'm excited to be here. This is my last Sabbath, my second to last Sabbath, but my last Sabbath preaching for a couple months, so you guys have a little break. Yeah, so because we're going to Oregon in about 8 days, and after that we'll be at camp meeting, and then I'll be back after that. So I'm excited to share the Word of God with you today. Amen? Amen. So Saul was pacing back and forth day after day, day after day, looking for that person who could go and fight the giant. Pacing, worried, wondering for 40 days, we read. Pacing back and forth. Who's going to go conquer this giant? He doesn't know who it's going to be. He certainly knows it's not going to be himself. But he keeps on pacing back and forward, looking, worried. Let's read this together. Let's go in our Bibles. It's a good thing to read the Bible, and it's a good thing to bring the Bible with you to church. But there are some in the back of the chairs there. We're going to go to this story, 1 Samuel 17. 1 Samuel is in the early part of the Bible, the Old Testament. Samuel is one of the prophets. If you ever want to read about David and Goliath and whatnot, that's in 1 Samuel. So 1 Samuel 17. First Samuel 17. If you're there, say amen. Amen. All right. So prior to this, we won't read all of it, obviously, but prior to this, this giant is mocking them day after day, saying basically, send me your best fighter, and I will destroy him, and the birds will eat his flesh. Send him to me. And so David, who's just a young boy, David, who was sent by his father, David, who was rejected, David, who was mocked by everybody, goes into the battlefield. Ooh, sound familiar? So he walks up, and he sees in verse 28, he says, I can handle this. What's going to be done if I get it? And verse 28, when Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here, David? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. Now what have I done, said David. Can't I speak? Sometimes we don't want our youth to speak. He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, the king, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, you can imagine David, this little man, saying this to the king of Israel, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Saul replied, sometimes what we like to reply to our young, you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. Why? Because you are just a young man. He has been a warrior from his youth. Let's skip down to verse 38. Throughout that time, David, in a few verses, David talks about how he's fought off lions, fought off bears. He's a shepherd. He protects his sheep. Sounds familiar. Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. Then Saul dressed David in his tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on him. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. I cannot go in these, he said to Saul, because I am not used to them. It's the last thing we'll read here. So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with a sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. I'm going to title this sermon, Sticks and Stones. Let's pray. Lord God, creator of everything, we love you so much, Lord. Have your way here today. In Jesus' name, amen. Saul is curious who he's going to send in to his battle. Sometimes we look around our camp and think, that's my problem, but who or what am I going to send into it? I don't want to handle this. Who else can handle this for me? I don't want to deal with this. Who else can deal with this for me? And as a matter of fact, the way that they used to do war back then, or battles, would be there would be, say, 10,000 on this side. Stay with me, everybody. We're going to be done in 20 minutes. There's going to be a battle on this side, 10,000 people on this side. And instead of having just a monstrous bloodshed of fighting and fighting and fighting for days on end, they would choose a champion from that side and a champion from this side. And those two champions would go against each other. So rather than having all the bloodshed, champion versus champion. So the Philistines certainly had their champion. Who was it? Goliath. What was so cool about Goliath? He was a giant. Right. Something like maybe 9 feet tall. A couple inches taller than me. Why are you guys laughing? Yeah. So this was obviously Saul's battle. This is Saul's battle because he is the champion of Israel. It's his fight, but yet he's looking around for somebody to go fight his fight for him. Right? Who's going to do it? 40 days of just being mocked. And you have to imagine how humiliating it must have been for little David to come up to the king. How humiliating that would have been for David. For Saul. That this little boy comes up and says, I can do it. And what does he do? No, you can't. You're just a youth. Praise God that this is the church that stands behind their youth. Praise God. There's a lot of churches that just don't care about their youth. They leave them behind. They don't have youth pastor. They don't have even a youth group. They don't have Sabbath lessons for their youth. Praise God for Sunnyside. But God asked Saul to fight this battle. And he avoids it. And so, what does Saul have to do? He has to let David go do it. David gives him his case. I fought off lions, I fought off bears. So he gives him his case. I know you think you know where this sermon might be going, but just stay with me. He gives him his case, and Saul listens to it and says, all right, you can go do it, but here's my armor. And as parents, this is what we always do. I see your problem. Here's how I handled it and didn't do a good job at it. Here's how I handled it, right? And we just want to give them our methods when they have God. We are constantly avoiding our battles that God puts us in. And then we have to go watch somebody else go fight our battles and be blessed when God wanted to bless us. There's David, little David walking down, and Saul is just watching him. And he watches him defeat the giant that was supposed to be defeated by Saul. God has put problems into your life for you to overcome and see how faithful he is. And sometimes we just want to offshoot it to somebody else, and that person gets blessed. And then we get mad. Look how victorious that person is. Look how good his life is. How do you know it's a victory? How do you know it's a victory? David was not accepted by the king. The king wanted him dead. Does that sound familiar? The king, the rulers, nobody believed in him. They wanted him dead. You see, Saul had the problem of looking at it like we do, through Saul's point of view. not God's point of view. If we look at our problems just through our eyes, and I don't understand this, and I understand everything, right? I don't understand this. This doesn't quite make sense. But if we look at it from God's point of view, maybe there's something deeper there. Maybe there's something that he wants to bless us with. Maybe. If we just stick it out, instead of offshooting all of our problems, is Satan scared to fight you? No. Amen. If God be with me, who could possibly be against me? And you look at David rushing forward with the whole battlefield behind him, all of Israel behind him, and he's going forward as a substitution. He's not an addition to the battle. He is a substitution for all of this. He was enough. He was enough. All they needed was David at that moment. All they needed was David. And God will sub in for us too. This is around the time, anybody ever been around a nice full moon out in the wilderness? Pretty special. I remember I landed in India, and I met this dude at the airport, and we ended up we got on some camels. Weird story. We got on some camels, and he and I and these two guides, one of the guides was like 9, the other one was 12. That's what you want guiding you, right? Through Pakistan and India. We went out to, we went like a day out to Pakistan, and it was all sand. There was no vegetation, obviously no buildings, nothing for, I don't know, maybe dozens or hundreds of miles. You couldn't see anything. There was just nothing. It was as flat as could be and just sand dunes. And the sun set, and the guy made us some food, and we laid there. We just put blankets on the ground, and I'll never, ever forget it. It was a full moon. The full moon started to come up, and I kid you not, we could see dozens of miles away. We saw animals a mile away just walking. You could see your hand almost as clear as I could see it right now. There was nothing in the way. It was just so beautiful. And so you have to wonder, in John 18, you have to wonder why these men go looking for this man who claims to be God in a full moon with torches. Torches and weapons and lamps and lanterns, looking as if they're going to have to go find him somewhere, as if he's going to be hiding somewhere, as if he's scared of them. They say, I know how I deal with stuff, so I'm going to go out to battle with the way I deal with it, with swords. Here, David, take this sword. With lanterns, with all this stuff, as if this Son of Man is going to be hiding in a tree somewhere, scared of Rome. So they approach. And Jesus just finished praying. A prayer that, if you can read it and not cry, begging God the Father, just let this cup pass. Please, just let this cup pass. And he goes back to his friends, and they reject him. They're sleeping. And so he goes back, please, just let this cup pass. Listen, Jesus was not afraid of death. Jesus was not afraid of death. Sometimes we read this and we think, I wouldn't want to die either. Do you know how many people died in this book? Do you know how many people die today? Today, literally, this morning, are probably being beheaded somewhere in the world for Jesus. You think Jesus was scared to die? No. He said, I don't want your wrath, God. I don't want the wrath of God on me because of everybody's sins. I don't want that. Die? I don't want the wrath of God. Just let this cup pass from me. And it doesn't, and he accepts it. And he says, in just a minute, someone's going to be coming to betray me. There he is. And they're coming with their lanterns, and all of his disciples are there. And he sees them coming. What does he do? all of his disciples are lined up and they see him, and the Roman guards are coming. They think he's going to be hiding. What does Jesus do? He steps forward. And he leaves his disciples behind, and he says, "Who do you seek?" And they say, "We are looking for Jesus of Nazareth." And Jesus says, "I am he." And at the very mention of his name, these men fall. They can't even stand. At the mention of Jesus Christ's name, they fall down. Rome, the strongest men in the world, fall to their feet at the mention of Jesus Christ's name. They get back up. "Who is it that you seek?" Some people say we look like a little David, but they don't know we have a rock. He steps forward. He could have called angels down to shut these people out. He could have had them destroyed in a heartbeat. But instead, he steps forward. And as he steps forward, they say, "We are taking you with us." And what does Peter do? Peter pulls out his sword. Everyone knows it, right? He pulls out his sword, and he strikes one of the men where? In the ear. That's awkward. Right? Strikes him in the ear. And Jesus, the loving God that we have, gets this man, his enemy, love your enemies, touches his ear and heals him. And he says, "Put your sword away. If you live by the sword, you're going to put your sword away, you guys. Stop trying to do it your way. Stop. It's not going to work. Stop. It's not willpower. It's not self-control. It's not just another book, another job, a better spouse. It's Jesus. Put your sword away. You can't do it. Stop trying. It's Jesus. Jesus steps forward. Sometimes we think we can go fight Satan's army with our sword. Do you know how many kings and rulers and motivational speakers and great people are never going to see heaven? Because they thought their sword was just big enough. They thought they were strong enough. But they'll never see heaven because they didn't have Jesus. Jesus steps forward. Isn't this just the carpenter's son? Isn't that just a shepherd boy? Why does Jesus step forward? Why? Because surrendering is winning. Because surrendering is winning. Sometimes our victories don't look like victories. But Jesus shows us, surrender and you win. Let these men go. But Jesus, let these men go. Jesus, no. Let these men go. Just take me. And we're looking at Jesus. Just take me, Jesus. Don't go. I'm sorry. I'll stop cheating. I'll stop lying. I'll stop all the stuff that I do. Just take me. No. Just take me. Let them go. And so they bound him up. Chains. Think about the sweetest person you know. The sweetest, your grandmother, your grandfather, your father, the sweetest person you know, just being handled like that. Chained up, ripped around, screamed at, came out with guns, weapons, whatever it is. And they grab him and they take him away. Jesus. And what do the men do? They run away. Why? We watch Jesus getting taken away. We see the cross. And we think, that's so sad. Just take me. Just take me. But I love myself more than I love Jesus. Just take Jesus. That's all right. Just take Jesus. Just take him. Let him go. Every time that we sin, every time that we turn our back on God, just take him. I'm good. Just take Jesus. A good father steps in front of the bullet. David stepped in front of the lions, stepped in front of the bears, stepped in front of all the animals trying to kill his sheep. And Jesus says he's the good shepherd, and he does it on his own accord. And David stepped in front of lions fighting, and now Jesus steps in front of the lion called Satan, who is scouring the earth, looking for whomever he could devour. You see, Satan had this great idea. Satan has been working since day one on great ideas, and you can imagine how pleased Satan was when he thought, I know a way to kill Jesus. As a matter of fact, I have an idea of the most excruciating, most painful death that I can give Jesus. The crucifixion, the origin of the word excruciating. I'll kill him like that. That'll be perfect. You can imagine the angels watching this scene, how terrified they would have been. The disciples watching the scene, how terrified they would have been. And sometimes we can go a day without Jesus, and we don't care at all. We don't mind going a little bit without Jesus. But Jesus at this moment is beaten, then taken to the cross. All the way up to the cross, they're mocking him the same way they mocked David, screaming at him, making fun of him as he goes up that hill, still making fun of him. The same as David ran down that hill, still mocking him. Isn't this just the shepherd boy? Who is this kid? Looking at it from our point of view, isn't this just the carpenter's son? I have an idea. Let's nail him to some wood. Carpenter. They wanted him dead. Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness. Saul spent 40 days in that battlefield, and Jesus is constantly hearing about why he should forsake God from Satan. And he had to ask himself, why would I do it now? At this moment, where I'm fulfilling everything, where I'm sacrificing my life for everyone, why would I do it now? I have to say no to Satan so I can say yes to all of you. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to say no to Satan so that you can say yes to Jesus? And we say, what is Satan? Sin. Are you going to keep on getting raptured up in your stuff? Continually just falling in love with your stuff? What would you give it up for? They took him on top of that temple and showed him the world, all the money in the world, all the women, all the everything of the world. And Jesus said, I'm good. It is written. It is written. It is written. And then Satan comes to us and says, you want to have sex? You want to go get a little bit more money? You want to go do something nice and fun? And we're like, sure. Why would Jesus have given up at that moment? And you watch David run out there. He doesn't turn around and look at the crowd and say, who's going to accept this? And Jesus, the same way, walking to that cross, carrying that cross, doesn't turn around and get a head count of who's going to follow him after that. He went in spite of us and for us. And it didn't even matter how many people were going to accept it. If it was one, it was enough. Look at him going after that one sheep. He says, I will leave everything for one sheep. I will leave this world. I will come down from heaven, live like all you crazy people for one. Right? Just for one. So he's walking to that cross, and he's not worried at all about who's going to accept it. And David runs out to that battlefield, and he's in the middle of these two camps of good and evil, of Israel and Palestine. And you look at Jesus hanging from that cross. They finally lift him up, and he's hanging on that cross in between heaven and earth. Like David in the middle of that battlefield, in between good and evil, victory and defeat, just hanging there. Can you see him? Just hanging there. Jesus, the sweetest man to ever walk the earth, just hanging there. Hanging like a rock that was thrown to defeat a giant called Satan. Hanging there for us because he so loves. And we have a choice. Goliath's death was so easy. Sometimes we read the story of Goliath. I don't know if you can relate. Read the story of Goliath, and we almost feel sorry for Goliath. Was he a bad guy? Right? He was the enemy, and we feel sorry for him. At least I know I have. You're like, he had died a horrible death. That sucks, man. That's too bad. Yeah. And then we look at Jesus. And we're like, well, he's God. And he's on there screaming, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani! My God! My God! You've forsaken me. And all the wrath of the world's sin is on Jesus. And he's just taking it on. All of the stuff that we do, everything is on Jesus. And he's just taking it on. And God can't even look at him because he's so full of sin. And he's just hanging there in the sky. He can't even take it. And Satan is applauding. And he's about to die. And when he dies, he says, it is finished. And he just lays his head down like on a pillow because his job is done. And they come and they take down his body. Dead God. Take down his body. And Satan and his angels are as happy as ever. But the good book says, no weapon formed against me will prosper. None. What are you, a dog that you come at me with sticks? I will hang on these sticks and use your sticks to defeat you. Look at them running after Goliath and throws the stone. How does he get his head cut off? By his own stick. He will use his own weapons against him. We have Jesus. They carry the body of Jesus Christ down the hill again. And the Jews knew the power of a stone. The Jews knew the power of a rock that could kill somebody. So let's say, keep them behind that stone. Just roll that huge stone, and surely he won't come out of that. Just put that huge stone in front of him, and just seal it up, put a bunch of guards in front of it, and then surely he won't come out. But they don't know the power of God. They don't know. No weapon formed against him will prosper. Nothing. Sometimes our defeats look like victories, and our victories look like defeats. Who are you looking through? God's eyes or your eyes? So he's there behind that big stone. And he rests for a day. And that stone was no match for Jesus Christ. Death was no match for Jesus Christ. That Goliath, that Satan was no match for Jesus Christ. Rome couldn't hold him. Death couldn't hold him. This is not a story. We see too many pastors telling the story and saying, you too can fight Goliath. This is not a story about you having a Goliath. This is a story about you having a David. You having a David that will go fight all the battles for you. You having a David that says, just stay back. Let them go. Take me. You have a David. You have Jesus who will fight any battle for you. He's just waiting for you to put him in. Just waiting. We want to do it all by ourselves, and then we don't have him. The only reason David won was not because of the rock, but it was because of Jesus. The power of the stone is in God. And now God is asking us to go down and pick those smooth stones of the gospel. Pick up those smooth stones of the gospel and hurl them at the other side. Get the stones of the gospel and slingshot them to the enemy. Give those stones to the enemy. Let God go work on them. Send the good news to the other side. And watch what it can do. Watch what it can do. He came to invite all of us in his victory over death. Death no longer has its sting. Praise God. He qualified us for heaven. We need to stop saying, I'm finishing here. We need to stop saying, everyone just looked up. We need to stop saying that we are sinners. In every church I hear, well, we're sinners, so we are saints. We are saints. Don't cower away. God created you. You. The God who made all the things in the earth thought, I know what I can make. I'm going to make you. Stop what we're saying and cowering away, hiding in trees, hiding in problems, hiding in all of our stuff, hiding behind armies, just let everyone else go in front of us. Stop. We have now a God who allows us to rush into the valley like David and fear no evil. In the valley of the shadow of death. That's David writing. I fear nothing. Goliath, I fear nothing. Because I have God. And if God be with me, who can be against me? Now we have the courage to walk up those hills like Jesus with those heavy crosses that we carry, knowing that there is good news, knowing that the story is already done. Newsflash. Jesus already won. And in case anybody was curious, David ran down and cut off his head. Now he's definitely dead. I know you guys doubt sometimes, but I'm going to run down there and really defeat the enemy. I know you guys doubt this whole cross thing. I know you guys doubt me as Jesus. I know you guys doubt all this stuff when they hung me on those sticks. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to, Revelation 19, I'm going to come back with a sword like David, and I'm going to destroy Satan and throw him into that lake of fire, and he will be done forever. I know you doubted it, but watch. When Jesus comes back, are you going to be like the Philistines running that way, or are you going to be like Israel celebrating? Whose side are you on? That's our greatest decision in this life, because that rock that David picked up was there at creation. That rock that David picked up was there on day one. And now there's another rock that was there at creation that all of us just laying wait for us to pick them up and throw them at the enemy, to throw them at our sins, to throw them at our problems. Are you going to pick them up? Let's pray together, family.